Go ahead and call the Thursday, May 24th, 2018 meeting to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes from the April 26th regular meeting and the special meeting held on May 1st. Any changes to those minutes? No. Financial statement, Mr. Rupp.
Thank you. This is financial summaries of revenue and expenditure for the City of Hayes, month ended April 30, 2018. Revenues in April totaled $2,190,980. That's an increase of $167,741. Some areas of increased revenue: general government miscellaneous revenue was up $35,000 due to timing of receipts from HRC for ball field maintenance. Month-to-date residential and business water consumption is down negative 2.72%, while revenue on both is up 3.27%. And year-to-date consumption is down just a negative 0.93%, with total water revenue up 4.75%. No notable areas of revenue decreases. Expenditures in April totaled $1,781,344. That's a decrease of $1.25 million. Some increased expenditures over April of 17. Other contractual expenditures for the Bickle-Schmidt Sports Complex were up $8,900, due in large part to improvements made to infields of the ball diamonds with red shale dirt and laser leveling services. Electricity expenditures for the general fund, water production, and water reclamation were up $57,500, due simply to the timing of those billing. And public safety new equipment rose $77,000 for police radios and rifle optics, fire MSA cylinders, and a transfer of $50,000 to capital projects in preparation for the training facility. Expenditures in excess of the city manager's spending authority for that facility will be forthcoming. Some notable areas of decreased expenditure. The single largest contributor to this month's overall decrease in expenditures was a transfer made this time last year from City Commission Capital Reserve projects line in the amount of $1,475,000 to capital projects for the 8th Street reconstruction. The stormwater reserves project line fell $18,000 due to the Montgomery ditch improvements this time last year. Month-to-date general fund sales tax collections were at $526,490. That's a decrease of $2,000, or just negative 0.38% as compared to last year. Year-to-date general fund collections are $2,314,801. That's down $35,435, or a negative 1.51%. The report of quarter-to-date sales tax collections by industry classification was up $56,500, or 3%. Leading the way were the categories of merchant wholesalers, supermarkets, and building material. These top 10 represent 76% of the total quarter-to-date sales tax distribution. And the portfolio certificates of deposit on April 30, 2018 totaled $49.6 million, with a weighted average interest rate of 1.55. That's up 0.68 from a year ago. Our value on the portfolio of Treasury notes is $7,707,000, with a weighted average yield to maturity of 1.78. Total balance of the money market account on April 30 was $2 million, with a current yield of 0.5. Total investments are down $593,000 when compared to this time last year.
Move we approve the financial statement as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Spaller, second by Commissioner Musil. Any discussion on the financial statement?
I just want to say I was out at the ball fields last night, and I know they did a lot of work on the lips out there. And for me personally, that's the best those have looked out there in many years. So I know we spent some money on that, but I think it's well worth it. I know they were saying they just hosted a tournament with 53 teams, and they got another 53 coming here in a few weeks. So I think that's great for our community, and I'm glad that we're taking care of what we got out there. So thank you, Total, for.
We'll pass that on to Parks. They did a very good job.
They did very great.
And call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Do we have any citizen comments on non-agenda items? If you're here to comment on something that's not on our agenda? Nope, seeing none. I have a 40-8 boxcar dedication. State your name for the record, please, sir.
My name is Vance Chatier, and I am the relocation director for the Kansas Mercy Boxcar. And the reason we're here today is because in December, the City Council graciously supported the boxcar in its relocation to City Park, and we are very close to finishing it up right now. We're doing the final touches. We're doing our own repainting and stuff inside, getting it ready, and then June 16th we are doing a rededication. We have a special invite for each of the city commissioners. This is going to be a very special event. To give you an idea, next Thursday on May 31st, we are going to the governor's office where he's going to sign a proclamation declaring June 16th Kansas Mercy Boxcar Day. The mayor graciously contacted the French consulate, and it looks like we will have either the director or the assistant director of the French consulate here to attend the rededication ceremony.
We
Nice.
hope so.
Yeah,
We still don't have
I said it
confirmation
looks
of
like
that,
it, but
yeah.
it's not a done deal yet, but the emails look positive at this point that we'll have somebody. And we do want to make a special presentation to the city as well as the city parks manager, Jeff Boyle, for the support that you guys have given us to get the boxcar there and give it such a wonderful home. So we want to say thank you in a very special way, and we'll save that thank you until the 16th. We have something very special to present to the city, and I think it'll be something you'll want to keep on display because it's going to be something very nice
Great.
and very unique.
Well, thank you very
And the
much.
city employees are in fact invited as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, it sounds like you guys have been very busy. We're really glad for everything that you've done. Thank you for, you guys have put a lot of time and effort into this, probably
Still on.
more so than the people sitting up here, so thank you for everything you've
We couldn't have done it
done.
without the city's support. We really couldn't, so.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Good. we're
Thank you.
glad.
Thanks for coming.
You bet.
Next item is the consent agenda. There's some appointments for approval and then also appointments for recommendation, so. I can get a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Musil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item is the Vine Street roundabout discussion.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm John Brown. I'm the project manager for the City of Hayes, and the configuration of Vine Street between 32nd Street and 41st Street has been the topic of several studies over the last 25 years. The closure and demolition of the former Ambassador Hotel initiated the latest study to improve the transportation environment along this stretch of US Highway 183. In December of 2015, the city entered an agreement with WSP engineers, formerly Parsons Brinkerhoff, to perform a traffic impact study for any potential redevelopment in this area. The traffic study evolved into a full study of the Vine Street corridor from south of 32nd Street to north of 41st and Mopar, resulting in the recommendation to install a series of roundabouts along Vine Street. Staff solicited qualifications from engineering firms for the design of the roundabouts and other improvements proposed in the WSP report. 3 firms submitted qualifications, and a selection committee composed of the assistant city manager, public works director, and the project manager narrowed the selection down to 2 firms, Trans Systems and WSP. Those 2 firms worked with city staff to define a master scope of services that became the basis for a fee proposal. On April 27th, both Trans Systems and WSP submitted their fees. As you can see, Trans Systems price was just under $500,000 and WSP's was just under $400,000. Since the engineering design fees were based upon the exact same scope of services and WSP submitted the lower cost proposal, staff recommends entering an agreement with WSP. We were asked to prepare some frequently asked questions, and one of the most frequently asked questions is why. Why would we propose roundabout? What would roundabouts do? Why would we want roundabouts? Roundabouts would decrease congestion. Congestion on Vine Street is bad at certain times and will get significantly worse and more frequent as traffic increases if no action is taken. The roundabouts would provide a safer roadway environment by disconnecting the frontage roads and eliminating conflict points like left turns across traffic. They would provide better access back onto Vine Street from businesses and side streets. Roundabouts give equal access potential from all directions, and the 3-quarter intersections proposed make access safer with only right turns back onto Vine Street. They would provide a better pedestrian mobility across Vine Street. Roundabouts provide a safer place for pedestrians to cross Vine Street. They could also have the potential of providing a better first impression to the city, a gateway. The project provides opportunity to make Vine Street more visually appealing, and all of the above items help to keep the corridor economically viable. Another frequently asked question is when. The schedule proposed by both firms calls for design and review to take approximately 18 months. And with a project ready to bid by the end of 2019 for construction beginning in 2020. More frequently asked questions: are there a lot of accidents on Vine Street? There are approximately 31 crashes per year in the study area. Most are at the intersection of 32nd Street and the West Frontage Road, where the accident rate is actually 2.5 times higher than the statewide average for urban intersections. Crashes will become more frequent as traffic increases if no action is taken. What about trucks and oversized loads? The roundabouts and other changes will accommodate large truck traffic. The roundabouts will be designed to allow a large semi-truck with a 53-foot trailer to make the turns, and oversized loads such as wind turbine blades will be able to drive through the roundabouts just like they travel down Vine Street right now. What about emergency vehicles? The roundabouts and other changes will accommodate emergency vehicles. The roundabouts will be designed to allow a large fire truck to make the turns. When emergency vehicles approach a roundabout, motorists should clear the roundabout and then pull over for the emergency vehicles to pass. Will you be able to access the frontage roads from the roundabouts? No. The frontage roads will be disconnected at 32nd Street and at 37th Street. The frontage roads will only have access to Vine Street at the 3/4 intersects proposed for 35th Street. How will traffic flow better? The roundabouts are designed to allow for a more open flow of traffic. Since the traffic signals will be removed at 32nd and 33rd Street and at the I-70 ramps, there will be no more waiting at red lights there. Another question: and how will this impact the intersection of 43rd Street at Walmart? 43rd and Vine will remain unchanged as it's proposed right now. And then the last question: how would this project be paid for? They're proposing a transit guest tax, which we'll talk about here in a second. Actually, I think this is a good segue into that. Talk about financials. This project was listed in the priority queue of the 2018 budget for actually $9 million in cost. However, since then, with the completion of the study, the latest estimate is $7.6 million. The design cost that is being presented tonight to be for your consideration, the $399,000 is proposed to be paid for out of Convention and Visitor Bureau contingency. So you have the options of authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement with WSP for engineering services, or direct staff to another option, or to do nothing. And on the screen is the action for your consideration.
I move we authorize the city manager to enter an agreement with WSP in the amount of $398,895.26 for engineering services related to the design of roundabouts and other improvements to the Vine Street corridor as detailed in the January 2018 Vine Street corridor study, to be funded from the Convention and Visitor Bureau contingency.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs and second by Commissioner Dinkle, and I'm sure we're going to have some discussion. Or maybe not.
I didn't want to step on toes. John, I have a question. I don't know why, just when you said this, kind of thought of Walmart with the stop right there. What happens on a busy day, that's a red light, and people go to the roundabout, are they gonna end up stopped in the roundabout?
No, and I don't think we see that traffic backs up that far currently now. I know on a busy day it does, the 2 left turn lanes get kind of full,
Right.
but
You're also going to cut down on traffic to Applebee's,
That's true.
Old Chicago,
Yeah, I
and
don't think
and
I've ever
should
seen
eliminate the
traffic backed all the
U-turn.
way up to 41st Street.
Well, that's what I was
Right.
wondering, how far
Right.
it normally backs up, because I know I've been in that line, but I don't know how far, it's been backed up.
right.
Yeah, and if you were going to Walmart and you knew where your way around, you wouldn't have to go to 43rd. You could cut
Yeah.
up 41st and
Yeah,
go that
right.
way
Yeah.
if you were worried about getting caught in the signal.
What has your conversations been with the business owners along there?
We had some early discussions. We haven't had a whole lot of discussion with them in an interim period here because we had talked to them in the development of the concept, and then several months have gone by since we were in that while the concept was being finalized, and then with your consideration here. So we haven't had any recent conversations with the businesses, but in the course of that time, they were mostly positive. There were some that are opposed to it, or were opposed to it. I don't know what their stance is now. But for the most part, the businesses were in support of it.
One last question, I just had a few things wrote down. WSP, what is their record on doing roundabouts?
Great, yeah, they have a history of some in Kansas City area and in Wichita. They did come recommended when I consulted with my counterparts in Kansas City in the Wichita area. They presented a proposal that touted their qualifications that exceeded any the others, maybe besides the train systems, they were very equal. I would also say that beings, one of the nuances of this scope of services and this design is that being they are the same firm that developed the concept, they're bringing in a third-party firm, Kittleson, out of Oklahoma, which is probably even more reputable in terms of a nationwide or worldwide firms in terms of roundabouts, to review their concept and to comment and tweak. So there'll be another opportunity to review that concept plan before we go into full design with their comments.
Thank you, Joe.
I just have a comment. The comment as to why I'll be voting yes on this project. There is no secret I like roundabouts, but it's not about roundabouts solely. It's about traffic solutions. I think this is the only solution that's really been brought forward that everybody agrees is early in all our conversations thought it was a good idea. I think it's going to improve the economic development along that corridor. And I think that's going to as important to me as the traffic flow. And again, it's the entry into our community, and I think it's going to look good. I'm pleased with all the work that's been done. I'm happy about all the conversations that's been had over the last number of months. I think it's been good conversation, but I am in favor and will be voting yes.
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about quite a bit, and oddly enough to me, I thought about it a lot after our work session last week, mostly. Oddly enough, this is a little bit similar to R9. R9 is something that we've talked about for 40 years, and I'm sure that when the city commission, purchased the ranch back in the mid-90s, I don't think that there was a crisis right at that time. I mean, I think at the late 80s, yes, but I mean, there had been enough space between that and this that, they weren't in the middle of a drought. There wasn't a crisis. There wasn't a clear problem that needed to be solved, and yet they went on ahead and did it. Not only did they did it, but they went on and passed a half-cent sales tax on top of it to help pay for things going into the future. And I say that because to me, this is a little bit like that. It's something that's been talked about for 25 years. People have said that this has been an issue for 25 years, and this solution or that solution has been talked about, but nobody really ever, does anything. And any time that, I have discussions about R9, a lot of the first thing out of the gate is, well, what about this, or what about that, or what's a better solution? What about this? Don't you think this is a better solution? Or, $70 million, that's a lot of money. Well, all of those things are true, and if there really was a better solution, I would be all ears, because I'm not excited about spending $7 million in taxpayer money to develop the R9. But at a certain point, after 40 years, you have to just recognize that the potential solutions have been talked about. So, in the past week, I've kind of been running through that scenario with this. One thing that people have been asking me about often enough is the reverse access roads that we kind of touched on a little bit last week, and I think that it's a perfectly acceptable solution, but it also involves the taking of, not only is it expensive, but it involves taking property, and it would probably have to be on the west side. It'd have to probably be tied into 33rd Street, which would involve taking down houses, and was it the late 90s, the commission had the opportunity to realign 32nd, 33rd, and they didn't do it because there were houses and they didn't want to take property. So, you know, I'm not very excited about using the power of the government to take somebody's property just because we don't like roundabouts. I think too that really only solves problems on the south side of the interstate. And 3, I don't think that businesses are going to be any more excited about having access to their business be in the back than they would be about the roundabouts. So, you know, traffic signal has been brought up. We discussed that early on. Why can't we just put a light signal at 37th and call it a day? But I think too, what we haven't discussed about in depth is that anything that we do has to be approved by KDOT, and that's why they were brought in early on, and they were a part of the original, you know, study when we were just looking at that intersection. And they pretty much said if you want to put a stoplight at 37th and Vine, then you have to get rid of the light on the south side of the interchange. You're kind of switching out one problem for another if we do that. So I don't really see that as a solution. You know, I mean, we can go on, but this is the one proposal that fixes the most problems. And I think that that's probably what should be said publicly, at least that's what I want to say publicly, that, you know, I know that people aren't, you know, excited about it, and I want to talk more in detail about people's concerns about it. I'm happy to have those in-depth conversations, but overall, if you look at everything that we've studied for the past 25 years, this solves the most problems for the most people on both sides of the interstate. I think the businesses on the north side of the interstate, like IHOP and places like that, are going to be excited to have that access to get out if we do 41st Street. So, yeah, I'm in favor of the proposal, and I'm also in favor of making, I know we had some discussions last week, you know, do you do 1, do you do 2, do you do 3, and you know, the beauty of this is that by doing all 3, we solve the most problems. And so, yeah, I'll also be voting in favor of it, and I'm in favor of doing all 3 as proposed.
If I could, John, this other firm they're hiring, that WSP is hiring to kind of
Kittle.
cross check. What if they come up with a totally different idea? Because the state has approved this idea now, correctly?
Right. I mean, I don't think it's likely that they're going to come up with an apple when we have an orange. I mean, hopefully they're going to take that and polish it a bit, you know, and say, you know, this turning radius here should be a little bit bigger, or we had experience in this, and you know, we need to do it that way. But I don't anticipate there being a drastic change from what's.
Well, I guess for me, on what has kind of changed my mind probably the last 2 weeks is, you know, I look at Hayes since I've been here in 95, how much we've grown. You know, some people say, well, we do grow slowly, and we do.
Yeah.
But there was nothing north of I-70 when I moved here. And now look what's out there, and we know there's stuff going out there now. And we all know that we're trying everything we can to get more development, you know, where Ambassador is and other places. To me, this fixes, hopefully, it's stuff that's going to happen in the future, not just now. And I think if we just live for tomorrow, you know, then we wouldn't need this. But that's what I'm looking at this is I believe this is a fix for added traffic in the future, and that's why I believe I'll be voting for it also.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I do want to say a few things, because I'm in support of this, but I also think that there's been some misconceptions about why we're in support of this. This isn't just something that we like, roundabouts, and that's why we want to do it. I broke one of my rules today and read the comments.
Shame.
But there were a lot of things that were brought up that I want to just address very briefly, because there's misconceptions, and there's a lot of anecdote versus evidence and the reason why we're doing this. So some of these John already alluded to, how will semis get around? This is all KDOT approved. They're going to be able to navigate this. This is not going to be a problem.
And if I might just jump in on that one, you know, there's roundabouts in Newton that are right next to a truck stop. There's a roundabout in Junction City that's right next to a truck stop. They've been there for many years, and those truck stops haven't closed up business.
Hayes people can't drive. I think that's dumb.
That's really dumb.
And that's a terrible reason to not progress something. You know, if that were the case, then we shouldn't build roads at all. We should be spending our money on water instead of on roads. Well, we are spending money on water. That's progressing. That's a different line item. That's an entirely different project. So this is not one or the other. The city is broke. That's not true. Don't raise my taxes. We're not going to. Part of this comes down to the city is actually very well managed. People look at us as if we're just a bunch of idiots that are throwing money at everything, but there is money for these things, and there are ways to come up with the money that don't include taxing everybody to death. There were several comments that said, spend this money to fix the schools. Sorry, that's the wrong governing body. We can't do that. Roundabouts only work in light traffic areas. Actually, they work a lot better in heavy traffic areas. Light traffic areas, they're more annoying. In a heavy traffic area, we'll actually keep traffic flowing, and that's part of the reason that this will work for the long term. One of my favorites is that we're doing this due to kickbacks. If you all have been holding out on me,
Yeah, me too.
I'm really
I thought the
upset.
same thing. I thought we were going.
This is not a $400,000 study. We did the study. This is in engineering. This is actual design. This is part of the project. So we're not spending $500,000, almost $500,000 just to study something. Put it to a vote, no. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The reality is it is broke. It's been broken for a very long time. We've looked at a lot of solutions to this. It's been broken for years, and it's remained broken because we've refused to take action because it's been unpopular. And we need to take action on something, whether it's popular on Hayes Post or not. This will solve traffic flow problems, accident rates, side business access, particularly on 41st. You can get in and out of Home Depot. You can get in and out of Applebee's in Old Chicago, and let's keep dropping names. Pedestrian access will improve. Future expansion is going to be easier all along the corridor. And ultimately, the reason I don't think this should go up to a public vote, or the reason why we are voting on this tonight, is because that's the way our government's set up to work. We're a Republican form of government specifically so that we can make difficult decisions and not stagnate. Direct democracy will always move towards entropy because people won't vote for something against their personal interests, and sometimes that's necessary to improve the whole. So we are making a difficult decision in moving forward on this, and we realize it will be a transition period, but we're not doing it just because we're getting
like
kickbacks or just because I really like driving around in circles. And finally, if the commission wants to live in a progressive city, you should all move to Lawrence. To me, either we face problems and solve the problems, or the town dies. This is the point of having a city commission. This is the point of having a governing body in general. If we can't make decisions like this, then we will eventually ride off into the west and disappear into another ghost town. So that's why I will be voting yes tonight, and hope that we will continue pushing this project in the
You
future.
get an award for using the word entropy.
One thing, after listening to Chris, and I thank you for all those comments, I think we all thought the same thing if we read Hayes Post. But one thing I think is really important to say is we don't enter any of this stuff lightly. We don't just decide we're going to do something and tomorrow jump in and not know where the money's going to come from or haven't planned for the money. You made a wonderful point in that our city is very well run. We have staff in place that does an outstanding job, and they prepare us to be able to make the kinds of decisions we have to make. And they're not always easy, as I've said before. I appreciate everything the staff did to get us to this point, and now I think it's our job to take our community to the next spot, and this is it.
I would agree. And, Commissioner Dacre, you brought up something that I had written down here. I've heard many people say people in Hayes are too dumb to, handle roundabouts, and people in western Kansas can't handle it. I kind of take offense to that. I'm from western Kansas. I'm pretty proud of, how I was raised and what, the people around me, what they know, and I think they can handle it. It will be tough. The older people that come to Hayes, it will be a learning experience, but I'm very much convinced that in time they will figure it out. I think we're going to have to, staff, everybody, we're going to have to do a lot of training. We're going to have to be very patient when people come to our community. I'm sure we will. But there will be a lot of growing pains, but I'm positive that we can make this work.
Well, there is no intersection that's more important to me than 32nd and 33rd. It is, as Mr. Brown pointed out, the most dangerous intersection in town. A lot of very bad accidents have happened here. And in my time on the commission, we have walked away from 2 opportunities. One quite recently. It's a shame we didn't go with that one, but we were told we didn't have enough money, and now we do. So that intersection is critical. I am less enthusiastic about the other 2. This is a substantial sum of money to design it. And it should be, because when you don't design a roundabout correctly, as in many cities where I've been, you have a lot of problems. That's a big concern for me. Both the size and the scope of the project. The second and the most important, in addition to the safety though, is the fact that this actually has been a very short process, and that's where I respectfully disagree with my fellow commissioners. The sports complex was discussed for years before it came to a public vote, and because it was funded with the sales tax, it had to come to a public vote. The wastewater plant has been discussed since 2005. That's a $30 million project. So this is a relatively short amount of time. January to now is not, to us, we're like the ambulance drivers responding to a 911 call. It seems like we just got there. But to the person waiting for the ambulance, it's not been that long. I'm waiting forever. So we think we've been discussing this forever. This is actually a very new concept. We did not see this until January or February, and I still have a lot of questions. And even though we do represent the people of Hayes and we make decisions on their behalf, I appreciate, with age and with experience, not saying that you don't have it, but with my accelerating age, I really appreciate feedback. And we're jumping the gun on this. We asked if we can delay it, and if the price is still good last week, we understand the price is good. We're concerned, though, about the timing of the construction. I'd rather wait. So for that reason, again, 32nd and 33rd is a very dangerous intersection. And before I leave this body in 2020, I'd like to resolve that. But I don't like the way it's progressing now, so I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point that actually I was gonna, the whole, I think that there was some discussion about the timing of this, or, election or something like that. And I really think that I understand that maybe to the public, they think that everything and every decision centers around an election. But really, honestly, at this level, it just doesn't. I mean, maybe in Topeka, in Washington, it does. No, for sure, in Washington it does, but here, it doesn't. And, I think that there's all kinds of evidence to show that it doesn't. I talk about feedback, I appreciate that. I've gotten some feedback on this. It's not as much feedback as I've gotten on other issues. But, I will say that, an example of, not really paying attention to the election was the option on the property at Commerce. Did I get a lot of emails on it? No, but I did go to a meeting with about 40 angry realtors and talk to them for 2 hours about it. And let me tell you, I know those people live in Hayes. I know those people vote. Not only do they vote, but they also spend money to try to get people to sit up here that they want to sit up here, and to keep people out that they don't want to sit up here. So, and I had a good conversation with them, and then I disagreed with them. So, I appreciate that, some people view it that way, but that's just patently false. If you're up here making a decision based on whether you can get reelected or not, then you shouldn't be up here. And I don't think that anybody up here does that. I know that I don't do that. As far as, that this is a short conversation, I'll just disagree. This is a conversation that's been happening for a year and a half. There was presentation on it to the Planning Commission. There's been multiple articles written about it. It's been in the works for a year and a half to 2 years. We've not only had a lot of discussion internally about it, but there's been a lot of discussion online. There's been a lot of news articles written about it. I think that there has been a lot of public input, and more importantly, if we move forward with this, I think that there's going to continue to be a lot of public input. Because this is the design part of it. So this is really the part of it where we really do need to hear from people who are going to be affected from it, from those businesses up there, to see what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and how we can help them improve their access. So I understand. I disagree that this is a short process. I'm all for more public input, but like I said, doesn't really, as far as feedback goes, doesn't really kind of crack the top three for me. And to be honest, even if there was just this outpouring, I think then all that does is just create an opportunity for us to have more discussions about it. Because a lot of the discussions that I'm having one-on-one with people, there's just a lot of misconceptions. And once you start to get into those details and really explain what's going on, there's not this widespread opposition that I think people think that there is.
I went back in, didn't mean to interrupt. Is it okay?
No, go ahead.
When I really have, we've all taken this seriously. I think people sometimes think this is what, they made fun of it and they made light of it. But I actually went back and read all the articles that have been written in the last 18 months, I think, that I found on both Hayes Post and Hayes Daily News. And those articles have been out. We had this discussion for a long time. I didn't have any input until right now. And I will say that the input that I have had since last week's meeting, the people that have actually talked to me about it are more in favor of it than they were last week when I was talking. Now, I'm talking 10, 12, 15 people, but normally that would be split. They were all in favor. They stopped me to tell me they were in favor of it. So I think everybody isn't, and that's the way it is, but I think we're making a decision that's good for the community, and I'm pleased with it.
Yeah, and if it's okay with the fellow members, there are, not to point people out that I don't recognize, but there are people in the audience that I don't recognize. We got one agenda item. I have to assume that you're here to hear this discussion. And earlier we have an opportunity for non-agenda items, and that's because typically if you have something to talk about that relates to the agenda, we like to wait until we are actually talking about it. So if any of you folks had anything that you wanted to say, feel free to come forward. All I ask is that you state your name for the record so that we can put that in the minutes.
My name's Scott Jordan. My family owns the Pheasant Run Restaurant,
Yes.
which is where all the accidents happen. And
Yes.
I'm just going to say that I kind of disagree with some of the things. I understand some of them that have been said, but my first question is going to be to all of you. When they tore down Montana Mike's, why was the property not bought from the mall to make that intersection go straight through? Then we wouldn't have to be messing with any of this junk.
I think that's a great
Would be-
question.
would be
I wasn't
a
on the
whole-
commission when that happened, so
I know, but
maybe some
but
other
it was
folks
empty
can
for
answer it,
how
though.
many years?
I can't answer it either. I was on the 20-year plan committee that brought that possibility forward. I thought it was an outstanding opportunity. I don't know what happened. I wasn't here
So,
either.
Mr. Jordan, what happened, to answer your question, is that the city was going to work with the owner of the mall, and we estimated the cost of that project to be a certain dollar amount. And then when we got to the point of actually making it happen, it exceeded that dollar amount. We just didn't have the money, but now we do. So I don't like the answer, so I'm with you on that, because it could have been done. We could have
Right.
issued a bond, we could have done anything, but we just decided we just couldn't afford it.
Right.
And there are other options that are available too, but this is what we're going to proceed with.
Well, the
I guess.
biggest problem we have is that now we will, with this, instead of having two access points to our business, we will only have one. That's basically hamstringing us, because when I travel and I look for a place to eat, I'm looking for easy in, easy out. This isn't gonna be for somebody that's not familiar. It's not gonna be easy in, easy out for them, and we do not have access from the frontage road, which gives us access to all the hotels. That's where the travelers come, and then they go back up there to their hotels and they'll go out that way. I understand the accidents, and I don't know why either on our side of the street at 32nd, why it wasn't just shut off right there, or on Hayes Chevrolet's that side, and only allow a right-hand turn on either side, whichever side was not shut off. That would alleviated the cross-traffic accidents, because people wouldn't be able to go across. But we would still have pretty fair access back and forth off of those. Another thing I was looking at, I was going through all the the 216-page thumbnail drive. The thing I'm looking at is, okay, I have a question. How safe are the pedestrians going to be walking across Vine Street and 32nd and 33rd? Is there going to be a light to stop the traffic? Or are they going to do like on 27th Street and have that little light that flashes that people drive through anyway? Because I've seen them do it.
With roundabouts,
Not like
the
that,
crosswalks are very short. Your places where you go from refuge
Right.
to cross traffic to refuge are very short as opposed to crossing 5 lanes of traffic now. So with roundabouts, typically given the speed of the cars, which are only going to be 15, 20 mile an hour tops, and the short duration of where they would actually be in a traffic lane, it's easier for cars to yield to pedestrians in roundabouts.
And you're talking about starting construction in 2020, is that correct?
That's the timeline
Okay.
that they've presented, yeah.
What kind of access are we going to have to my business while construction's being made? It's a big question of mine.
Yeah, and that would be something that, unfortunately, I don't think that anybody's going to be able to really
Years
answer
ago,
that.
when all this beautification was done, I know that it was all Mom could do to keep the doors open because it just shut off the flow of traffic to us. And that's what the roundabouts are seemingly kind of wanting to do to us, and let alone with the construction.
One comment on the construction. I know I had some concern when we did the 8th Street project, and I actually talked to people down on 8th Street, and the construction group from La Crosse that put it in did an outstanding job, and now we know how it can happen. They handle the shutdown of entrances and egress and ingress on all those businesses. If you go down and talk to all of them right now, I think they would tell you that it was the best it could possibly be for a great outcome. And I congratulate John and the rest of our group for making that happen that way.
Whatever happens, we're not going to increase your business.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, when they start construction, like your
Right.
business isn't going to increase.
Right.
It's going to get hurt. And I guess I just say that because I'm sensitive to that, because my mom owned a restaurant for 15 years. And I remember when, the 8 or 10 years that they would come through and they would mill and do the overlay on Highway 15, and
Yeah.
that for that week, I mean, I'm sensitive to what you're saying.
And I appreciate that. The thing that I keep thinking over and over every night, I mean, not only is this my family's business that we've had for 36 years in this community, but I also represent the families of the people I employ that live here and spend money here too. I mean, it's very important to keep them paid and keep everything going. I worry about, I keep looking at it and going, man, we're only gonna have one entrance and one exit, and that flow of traffic's not gonna stop. How are these people gonna get back out?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back, to the pedestrian thing. We just recently took a trip to Europe, and of course they have roundabouts everywhere there. And it was actually somewhat easier to get across them than it was just a regular intersection. I know people wouldn't think that, but it actually is. But I understand your concerns, and we want to be sensitive to them, and we want to try to help out. I know that when we were talking about this at a previous work session, I think that you folks had some concerns about taking parking spaces from your lot, correct? And
Access and parking spaces and, I mean, just
right.
basically access to the business. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. If you all we ask is that you approach the podium and state your name.
I'm Sue Jordan. Sorry, I get emotional. When you're coming off of the roundabout, and our entrance is right there, how is somebody gonna stop? I mean, it's a flow. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
How are they gonna turn into our restaurant?
It would be the same as it is now. You have people
Right.
make right-hand turns, and there's a flow around that corner, and they turn into your
But
restaurant.
they also have a stoplight. I mean, I've been on, I've been in other cities that have, and
Right.
it just seems like it's just a constant flow, and people are gonna try to pull in the restaurant, and then how will they get back out again? There's no stoplight. Now we have a stoplight, and people can, when there's no traffic and it's stopped, you can get in and out. But how will they with a constant flow?
Yeah, I
The
agree.
traffic, the traffic count should stay relatively the same.
Right.
The only thing that will differ is you'll have less metered on the left-hand turns northbound on Vine and the through traffic on 33rd, but other than that, most of your traffic that's going by, it really shouldn't change. People will be able to get in and people will get out the way it is now.
Okay.
And
You know, I think one
I
of
have
the,
old folks. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you, I have.
we have, one of the options I know that was discussed in the past was shutting off the access road to just shut it off. And of course, you know, one of the concerns about that is that when you have two access points that we've not really shut it off, then all we've done is just cause people to drive through your parking lot.
They do that now.
I do
anyway.
that.
Yeah, so I mean,
And it's-
I'll sit
unfortunately,
there and mow and I watch them do it all
Yeah.
day long.
Yes.
I wish that, I wish that we had a solution that fixed all of the problems that were up there. But,
And we
like I said,
understand that too.
this is not
you
a,
know.
this is not a perfect solution. It's just one that, you know, as I was saying earlier, it solves the most problems of anything that's been proposed before.
And I understand that, you know, that and we're not a very big business, but we've been here a long time,
Yeah.
and it's,
And then you put this, I see the sidewalk that you put in, there's already a sidewalk there for pedestrians to walk on, next to the access road.
well, it's
And-
in on our
I
property.
know, but it's already there. I don't see many people use it. Some do, but most of the access that he's used is on that access road coming into our restaurant.
Mhm. And I think that, you know, access is something that we can continue to talk about because this is just a design contract. So
Sure.
I wish, you know, one of the conversations we had prior to this was, you know, do we delay this to have more conversations like this?
Well,
But
I've
the
only had
problem,
one gentleman come to me.
what's that?
Your
Yes.
engineer came to us.
I understand, and we've had conversations. Do we have more of those types of conversations? The problem is that if we get into what I would kind of call the weeds of this and talk about access points and things like that, before we do the actual engineering, we feel like maybe we might be saying something that, you know, oh, we can do X, Y, and Z, and then we get into the engineering, we actually can't do X, Y, and Z. And so, in a way, we need to do the engineering so that we can have more of these conversations like what we're having right now.
So is it changeable then? That's interesting. Mr. Brown, will they change it based on the feedback after they design it?
Not
Not
majorly.
after,
I
but
can
during
answer
the
that.
design.
Right, just,
Not-
this
not-
is just a concept. It's
Right.
not, you can't build this, you can't give this to a contractor and say,
Right.
build it. That's why you're spending, or proposing to spend $400,000 to work through those details.
Right, the
We're
concept
talking
may
about a
say
lot
the
of
sidewalk will be
details.
here, but in design it
Yeah.
has to be here, or there'll be 3 parking spots based off the geometry, but it turns out there are 4, so
It's like Draw
that's the
Tippy,
stuff
and
that
we've
could
got the
change.
3 circles, and the rest of the artwork isn't there yet.
Could I
So-
interrupt just for a minute, because Mr. Jordan may not know that I met with his attorney's office for a couple hours.
Yes.
And you're aware of that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We
And,
sent her there.
well, I know, but I just didn't want the commission to think that the only contact you'd had with the
Oh,
city
no.
was Mr. Brown.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I'm going to get a chance to sit down and see if we can't improve on this before I'm stuck.
Well, and like Commissioner Jacobs was saying on A Street, John, you got a lot of people saying they were so impressed how you were constantly talking to them. You know, oh, they were always saying they were so impressed how you're always talking to them, what's changing, what's not changing. And I have no doubt that he'll continue doing that. Toby will, continue doing it. And I think all of us will do it because,
Right.
I own a small business too, guys. I absolutely get it. When there's something going on downtown, they block the roads, it kills your business. And I don't want to hurt you guys. You guys have been known Hayes for, ever since I've been here. I hear people talking about it for years. And I want you to stay around Hayes.
Well, that's the biggest thing that I want. And I
Absolutely.
want to be able to keep the families that I employed and
Yes, sir.
make sure that this community grows. I just don't, I gotta look out for my business.
Yeah.
Yep, we appreciate that.
Anybody would.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Yes, sir.
I'm Ron Adams.
Oh,
Years ago, I used to work for Bucher, Willis, and Ratliff when they were in town. And I've looked at the design, and I've drove through a lot of roundabouts. Never drove through a peanut-shaped roundabout before. I was hoping you had, if this is just a concept, that you still can change some things on it, or have 2 or 3 plans presented to you at the time. And one of the things I was thinking about is at 37th Street, is there any way you can eliminate some of the I-70 exits and ramps and make that 37th Street into an on-ramp of I-70, possibly?
As far as transportation will not allow that, we are told.
Right. There was actually, no, not 37th, but 41st.
41st.
That we looked at, 41st.
41st, same way.
Yeah,
It'd be the
there was
same
some
thing.
discussion about, just kind of sandwiching that with the off-ramp, and KDOT will not allow anything like that.
There were some situations like that in Topeka that did not work out very well. I think it's near the Sam's Club on Wanamaker, and they said, we ain't never doing that again.
Yeah.
Because it's a really difficult, that actually makes us look great, their engineering there.
I mean, to take out their existing ramp entirely on that and just make 41st just an on-ramp?
They will not do that.
They will not.
That's what that was. the
I thought you had an in with the governor.
Not this one. I imagine you do as well. A little phone call wouldn't hurt, Mr. Adams.
Anyway, I was hoping you'd have maybe 2 or 3 concepts that you'd look at instead of just the one.
Okay.
When they show their little cartoon cars going around the deals, they have some trucks in there, but the trucks never make a curve. They always go straight on through on all the semis they show on there.
I watched
never-
that today. I thought
I
I
saw
seen
it
it going
today,
on.
and they go,
Did we
haven't
update
watched
that,
it
John,
recently,
or-
but-
No, and like I said, cartoon, the simulation that's out there is to simulate traffic flow and how the volumes and the access and meshing and stuff go. It wasn't designed, it wasn't intended to show how a particular 53-foot trailer, 180-inch wheelbase truck is going to make the turn. I do have visual picture of the wheel paths run through auto turn, showing how a truck would negotiate those roundabouts. So what you'll see here is this would be a truck. This would be the there we go. Truck coming off of the coming off the off ramp, the westbound off ramp, making a U-turn in the roundabout. I guess if they decided they wanted to get back on the interstate, they would go that way. Or they could keep going south. But I think it was intended to show how the apron there for the wheel path on that turn was designed, noting that the red is intended for trucks and trailers to track onto. The normal driving your Prius, you wouldn't drive there, but if you're towing a trailer behind you, it's perfectly acceptable for that trailer to track behind. So you can see how that works both north and south of the interstate, and similarly at the elongated roundabout there as well. So if that helps any.
Well, I've drove trucks before.
Right. So, and once again, like I said before, this is still concept. This is 3 circles. The artist has not fleshed out all the details yet. So, but it will be designed to accommodate the WB60 truck. If you're familiar with the wheelbase configuration of semis, it will configure, which is only about 3% of the trucks on the road. Most trucks are smaller than. Otherwise, that's the largest truck that's not classified as an oversized load. So,
Okay. Thank you, John.
I don't see how that 41st Street, that deal coming back around and making a complete U-turn and coming back to interstate doesn't look like a good idea to me. And I would be willing to talk with somebody at KDOT if to try and make that 41st a full intersection there, or make it a full roundabout instead of peanut shaped like that, to make the semis and traffic come back to get on that
Well, the
entrance
peanut would be
ramp.
clear to the south, so I don't see any reason why a semi would need to do a complete turn in the peanut one, but the regular roundabouts at 37th and 41st, they would, yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the thing that I can think of that's similar to that is Junction City. And when I was making monthly trips to Topeka, I stopped there quite a bit, mostly because it was easy. For me, it was easy to get on and off. And When you get off there, you do have to make almost a complete circle to get into the truck stop. And then when you get off, it's just a very short jaunt, and then you're back on the interstate. And yeah, I mean, I've seen trucks do that all the time, so.
I agree. Vine Street there needs to be something done on it. It is dangerous the way it is right now.
Yeah.
And I just hope you guys pick the right one. And-
Yeah, well, and you know, it's an engineering, so we hope that, you know, maybe there's some things that they can tell us that, you know, we haven't looked at yet.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, that I didn't know they were going to be bringing in that third party from, whatever, the name
Just a
again?
fresh set of eyes.
Kittleton, yeah. Having a fresh set of eyes look at it, I'm sure if there's something missing, they're gonna grab it.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Adams, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. Next item is the progress report.
I have my candy now.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Assistant City Manager Jacob Wood with the progress report.
Welcome, Paul.
Hey, it didn't come from me this time.
Welcome, Mr. Wood.
At least we're not on TV or anything. All right, I'm going to start out with the Public Works Department. Up at 43rd and Vine Street, we put in some pedestrian signals with the additional buildings and businesses going up there at Tebow Village. We felt like it was a good idea to put in some actual push-button entryways and fix the ADA accessibility up there, and that has been completed.
Who is your model?
I don't know.
Standing very fashionably on the crosswalk.
It's one of our service division workers.
Not sure who it is, actually. You also have probably seen our service division guys around town. This is a picture of them doing some curb repair at the 500 block of West 14th, but they've also been working downtown. They've done a couple of ADA curb cuts there, and then off by on Vine Street, you've seen the new entryway by Serves that they just completed. So anytime we get a chance to talk about the good work that they do excellent concrete work. So check that out. In the fire department, we did our aircraft live fire exercise at the airport. This is something that the FAA requires that we do annually. We brought in a team from University of Missouri and University of Kansas Fire and Rescue Training Institute to conduct that. And we also had some firefighters from Dodge City come up and take part in that as well. We've also conducted some technical rescue training. This is it's a pile of concrete. Basically, they are moving around large pieces of concrete using just hand tools. We were able to do this at our new training site. We're not fully up and running on the training facility at this point, but there is space out there that allows them to do some additional training that they would have been able to do otherwise. On to information technology. Not a lot of big flashy things that happen in IT, but this is something that they have worked on pretty hard. Every year we do our video cammering of the sewer lines, and we get that product back after they send the camera down the line, and we have to do something with it, and the IT department puts that back and they marry it up with our database so that we can go into our GIS system and see all the videos where they're at, so that our guys that are working on this stuff in the future can go back and look at the lines in those particular areas if there's issues that crop up. In the Parks Department, you guys have already had a little presentation from the 48 boxcar folks. That project is up and running, fully complete. As they said, they'll have their dedication on June 16th.
Looks great.
The Parks Department did an excellent job, filling everything in, putting the concrete in. They do good concrete work as well. We really have some pretty talented people working for the city as far as concrete work goes. The downtown pavilion, the park staff has had a big hand in helping this project come to fruition. This is a couple of pictures of the landscaping. Jeff Boyle has done an excellent job working with Downtown Hayes. This is it's been a year-long project, and he's been part of it at every step, providing his advice and trying to get things going, and he's done a great job. So I just want to say thanks to Jeff in particular. All the guys take great pride when we do these sorts of things. They're gonna take great pride in maintaining it now that it's been turned over to the city, and they've done the landscaping just recently. In the police department, we had an officer that graduated from KLATC here in the last month. We've actually had 4 officers in the last 6 months graduate from KLATC, so we've got kind of a young force coming up, but we're excited to get those guys through the training so that we can get them out on the road.
have another officer that will be going to training here in the next month. In the water department, we've been participating in community events quite a bit in the last couple of months. We had World Water Fund Day at Sternberg Museum, FHSU Ag Day, and then we had a water festival at Hayes Middle School. Our water conservation specialist, Holly Dickman, has spent a lot of time out there trying to get people spun up on what the latest thing is as far as water conservation goes. We also took part in the Spring Art Walk. We had a booth set up down there, and then all the water poster contest winners that were here at the City Commission had their posters displayed downtown. In the Convention and Visitors Bureau, we had our first flight to Chicago. I know this is a little while back. I'm going back to April. April 9th was the first flight from Hayes, or from Chicago into Hayes. We had a crew on the ground to welcome that flight in. I just want to kind of give a quick report. The employments are up 7% from last year at this point, and we had 100 more passengers in April of 2018 than we did in 2017.
Awesome.
So we haven't seen the full effects of the Chicago flight just yet, but we are actually for the first 4 months of the year, we are on pace to hit one of our best years ever. So hopefully we can keep that up on into the next several months. And then we have some upcoming events. The Hayes Aquatic Park will open tomorrow. So Shawnee the Frog there is welcome. Yes. We also have the downtown market will be opening up soon. Relay for Life is coming up. We have the fly-in at the airport, and then we'll have a summer art walk coming up.
And that actually made me think, we were looking at the future agendas. In June, the city commission will be presented with the additional piece of play equipment at the Hayes Aquatic Park. Jeff's solicited proposals for that, so you guys will be seeing that in June.
And that concludes the progress report.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dinkle, anything else?
I wanted to say briefly on the water conservation things, going into the schools and all of that. I know sometimes it can feel like you're spinning your tracks because you're seeing new people every year. But I was in grade school when the conservation efforts really started in Hayes, and I still remember some of the videos that we watched when I was in second grade, years ago. So keep up the good work. Those really do matter, and they make a difference. Every time I leave the hose running, I feel really guilty and go turn it off. So
Pavlovian training works well.
yeah, exactly. So no, that's all I have.
I wanted to express thanks to the Parks Department and Jeff. The pavilion work that they've done is outstanding. And this week I happened to be downtown a number of different times, and there are people in the park down there all the time, sitting around, enjoying it, having lunch. It's really a great environment. The other thing, Jacob mentioned it real quickly, and we'll have a couple meetings, but I can't stress enough and invite people to come to the fly-in. I've participated the last couple of years, but my grandchildren have participated the last couple of years. They just saw it on Facebook, and they already put their order in. They're coming to the fly-in. So we're bringing folks from the Springs. They do a wonderful job with that, so we're excited about that.
Are you
June
going-
9th from 9 to 1.
Are you going skydiving?
No.
Oh, I'd pay to see that.
I would too.
Your favorite
Well, if
charity?
you're paying, then maybe
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
I'm kicking.
We're all good.
Speak for yourself. There ain't no way you're getting me to do
We're
that.
taking in money for her to.
Oh, for her to do it. Yeah, no, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think we can raise a lot of money for charity. It's gonna be awesome.
Just so nice.
I also, it's like we're all on the same page tonight for once. Public Works, all the curb repair, what they've done to the frontage road there on Vine Street close to Serves. I'm not sure what the actual address is. I mean, to me, it just, I guess that was in the 2018 street maintenance. I guess didn't see that in fine print.
It was one of the in-house projects. We
In-house,
do
right.
tons of in-house
I think that's
curb
great.
and brick and street repair.
I've had numerous people just last few days say, I'm so thankful you guys are doing that, because if you go by there when school gets out, that is a nightmare, and I think that just looks great. So I appreciate you having those guys do that. And I've also had just in my business the last few days, many people said that how they've driven around our parks and how beautiful they are. And for as dry as it's been, for them to look as good as they are, I mean, that's a credit to what Jeff is doing and his group. So thank you guys for what you're doing.
I want to wish everyone a happy and safe Memorial Day. Appreciate certainly all those that served our country. And as I visit the grave sites of my family, I think about family memories, and one of them is 32nd and 33rd, before three of you were born. And Sandy and I were here, and John. We were driving through it. You know, it used to be configured differently. It was actually worse. You would come to the Chevrolet dealership, then you would take a left, and you'd drive towards the what's now the Days Inn. Then you would cross. And I was 8 or 9, and I asked my dad, who was a very plain-spoken person. I said, "Dad, why is this intersection so dumb?" And he said, "Because the expletive county commission made it this way." And I said, "Okay, there you go." Done.
Perfect.
Judging that.
Let's hope 3 people aren't watching at home. All right.
I hope the one who did it is at home.
I don't think we need an executive session? Nope. Nope. Okay. With that, may God bless the city of Hayes. Meeting adjourned.
John, that's actually not what he said.